Can we tell who else is? Okay, I saw Jason, so he must know.
He just turned the audio on.
There's two not in yet. Guess we have a quorum. It's 5. Five out of 7. So. Trustees. All right, I think I have 9 o'clock, so I will call our meeting to order. A couple of the normal announcements that if we disconnect anytime during the meeting, it'll try to be restored within 15 minutes. If not, we'll meet again at 11 o'clock today. And city staff, if we have any citizens to be heard, then let them come in and have them mute their phones until they're ready to speak. So, all right, I'll call the meeting to order. I don't have any items from the chairman right now. And I don't know of any citizens to be heard, so I would have approval of the minutes of our September 4th board meeting unless there's any corrections or deletions.
Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but did staff give you the script to read the COVID language?
I don't think so. I just have the chairman's instructions for the teleconference meeting. You want to read it? I don't.
Yeah, Lisa or Jason, yeah, somebody needs to read the information about if we're disconnected.
I thought he just covered that we would resume the meeting at 11.
11, okay, I'm sorry, I just missed that. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right, back to our minutes. Are there any deletions or corrections? If not, I'd have a motion to approve our minutes. We have a moved and seconded. All in favor?
Chairman, okay, perfect.
Okay, I see everybody's voted, so it passes. Our consent docket, there's 4 items on the consent docket. I don't know if there's any particular items any of the trustees would like a discussion on. we did have a parking committee meeting on item C, and the parking committee approved the new parking rate schedules for the new garage and surface lot. So if there's no questions on any of those, I'd have a motion to approve the consent docket. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Now, our items for individual consideration. Item A is an amendment to the contract for engineering services for Wendell for architectural engineering, surveying, and landscape for the natural gas refueling station. Any comments on that, Jason?
Yes, I'd like to make a couple of comments on it. This will essentially close out the contract that we have with Wendell Architecture. As you mentioned, they helped us design and manage the construction for not only the CNG fueling facility, but also all of the upgrades that we made to our fleet maintenance repair facility. And I just wanted to direct the trustees' attention to basically page 6 of the agreement, or I should say the amended agreement. That outlines what the additional $38,000 in cost is attributed to. You can see that with this amendment, we're agreeing to pay Wendell an additional $38,000. $6,800 of that is for additional geotechnical investigation and engineering, so some additional engineering there. $7,000 of it was for a topographical survey. Really where the majority of this additional expense comes in is the required attendance at agency stakeholder meetings. That's part of their construction management responsibilities. And as you know, this particular project extended out considerably further in terms of time of completion than what was estimated, particularly with the repairs to the fleet maintenance facility. It took a tremendous amount of coordination with the contractor to get that job completed. So the majority of the additional funds is for, basically extra time and management that they put into assisting us in managing the construction part of the project. And then finally, $4,200 was for a stormwater study that was required. I believe that was required for permitting processes. But I just wanted to point those details out to the trustees. And then again, with approval of this item, it will essentially close out our contract with Wendell.
All right, any questions? If not, I'd have a motion to approve item A. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? All right, motion passes. Thank you. Item B is an amendment to the professional services agreement with Houck Transit. Is that how you pronounce it?
Sir.
Oak. Okay, for our advertising. I guess, Jason, you've got a comment on that because we're reducing the services.
This certainly a few comments on this one here. So as the memo indicates, we actually entered into an agreement with Houck back in May of 2017. They were selected through our typical RFP process. As you know, their specialty is basically transit advertising, and they work in various markets across the country. We've had a very good relationship with Houck since entering into that agreement, along with many other things in our economy due to the COVID pandemic. The advertising market has took a hit. And the reason that is relevant to this item and this need to amend the professional services agreement is because one of the things we're able to secure in our current agreement with Houck was a MAG, or a minimum annual guarantee of revenue. And so for the trust, what that means is regardless of how much advertising Houck sells, we were guaranteed a minimum of $250,000 in revenue. And then once we exceeded that that minimum guarantee, we would split it. Well, with the market the way it is, HALC is simply unable to fulfill that revenue obligation. Again, we've had a good relationship with HALC. They've done great work not only on the transit advertising side, but they were instrumental in helping us secure streetcar sponsorships. So we staff have been working to renegotiate, or I should say amend the agreement, and we're recommending to the trust that this agreement be approved. That would allow us to continue our contract with HALC out through June 30th of 2023. And the new terms of the contract are really summarized on the first page of the amendment. And essentially what those terms are is, for this fiscal year, FY21, HALC would no longer be obligated to pay the MAG, the 250 minimum. Instead, we would simply enter into a revenue share of 60-40, with 60% going to COTPA, 40% going to HALC for anything that they sell. Then in fiscal year 22, the MAG would be reinstated, only it would be at $150,000. So we'd be guaranteed 150, and then anything sold above and beyond that goes into a revenue share split. And then fiscal year 2023, the last year of this agreement, the minimum annual guarantee would increase to 175,000, with any sales in excess of 175,000 revenue being split. So again, staff has worked with HALC to negotiate these terms, and we're recommending them to the trust for approval.
All right, thank you. Any questions by any of the trustees? I have a motion to approve item B. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Item C is a resolution to enter into a bareboat charter agreement with HMS Ferries for private charter boat services, estimated $17,000. I guess bareboat means exactly what it says. They just get on the boat.
Yes, that's right. What we would like to do, and what staff is requesting the trust consider, is authorizing the administrator to enter into this bareboat charter agreement with HMS. And what that really means is that we would provide the boats, our assets, to HMS. HMS could then use those facilities only for those specific time periods and purposes that they're essentially, leasing the boats from us, in order to run specialty cruises and charter cruises. And so really the way I'd like to convey this to the trustees is that, last month we entered into a amendment to the contract with HMS. So we have them under contract to maintain the boats. They're able to maintain staffing levels so we can stand up the river operations as soon as resources possibly allow. But in the meantime, what HMS is and staff have been talking about is really like a private-public partnership where, again, we could provide the assets, the vessels for HMS to use. HMS would then take on the financial risk, really, of those specialty cruises and charters. And then through this partnership, we're able to restore at least some level of service to the Oklahoma River. It wouldn't be typical transit service like we've run in the past, but we would be able to offer specialty cruises and charters to the residents and visitors of Oklahoma City. And again, with the financial risk of those charters and specialty cruises really being on HMS. So if they, for example, if they run a specialty cruise and there's low turnout, well, they're the ones that are paying for the crew and the expenses associated with that. Of course, if the specialty cruises get a lot of ridership, then there's potential there for them to generate revenue. But nonetheless, we're looking at trying to provide some level of service without additional investment by COTPA, considering the current budget year that we're in. The one thing I wanted to mention is we do have an estimated revenue amount of $17,000. And really what that estimated revenue is to help us recoup any costs. So if HMS charters a boat from us, of course, they'll pay for their own staff and so forth. But there will be fuel, there will probably be some incidental supplies that will be needed for the boats. And, obviously we will recoup any of those costs, and that will come into us in the form of revenue, whether we'll basically bill HMS for what they use. So,
Jason, will HMS take care of advertising for these charters?
Yeah, they're actually, their staff is really putting all the work behind promoting the specialty and the charters, coming up with the promotional materials. Now, one thing we will do is because we're very protective of our social media accounts and our brand image. So, there will be a process where whatever they would like to post or advertise, it will go through our staff for review, but they're doing the majority of the creative work and such.
Are the boats ready? Are they in dry dock, or how much time do they have to get one of the boats up and running?
Yeah, the boats are all operational as we speak, and that's been really the goal all along. And the way we want to maintain those vessels is in a state of good repair. So they're checked out and maintained and operational at this time. Just, of course, not really in use.
All right. Any other questions? I have a motion to approve item C. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Item D is authorizing the administrator to apply for surface transportation block granted for our fixed route bus project, streetcar safety signage, and streetcar turnback project. Jason?
Yes, sir. So you have one memo here summarizing the 3 projects that we are submitting for STBG UZA funding. Each of the projects is included in one of the supporting resolutions. So we basically have a resolution for each of the projects that we're submitting for. Each one of these projects is competitive in nature. So there's certainly no guarantees that really any of these projects will be funded. So completely different than the typical formula grant that we receive. But nonetheless, we have had some success recently in being awarded STBG UZA money. If you'll recall, we were successful in receiving some funds for the replacement of some fixed route buses. Most recently, we were awarded some funding for traffic signal priority for our bus system, along with some paratransit vans. So we're submitting 3 projects. With approval of the trust, we'll submit these to ACOG for consideration. And real quick, the 3 projects is the first project is for the purchase of 2 CNG 40-foot buses. These buses would be used to either replace existing buses that are past useful life, could potentially be used to expand our fleet. And we're looking at a 20% local match on that particular project. The second project that we're submitting for is streetcar safety signage and striping. So it's just adding additional striping and some additional signage along the streetcar route to enhance safety. That overall project cost we're estimating at about $33,000. Because it falls into the safety category of the STBG UZA program, there's no local funds that are required. So if we're awarded, that would be 100% grant funded. And then the last project is the streetcar turnback project. This is on 5th Street. The overall project cost is estimated to be $1.4 million with a 20% local match of about $292,000. And just as a refresher on this, as the trustees are aware, we do have streetcar track installed on 5th Street connecting Broadway and Robinson. And that track was installed as part of the original MAPS project. And the idea with installing that 5th Street turnback was, one, it could potentially be needed for any future connection from the Innovation District, but more immediately, with that turnback in place, it gives us more operational flexibility. And what I mean by that is we can actually turn the streetcars around at 5th Street on Broadway and send them back south on Robinson if, for some reason, we're unable to serve the northern part of the route, say Midtown in that area. We have another turnback on the route at EK Gaylord, and we use that, frequently when, Bricktown is busy with events or there's traffic issues. The 5th Street turnback, on the other hand, we haven't been able to use because we still have some items we need to address to make it operational for the streetcar. And you can see them outlined in your memo, but basically it's electrifying the existing switches that are there, and then putting in all the traffic controls that are needed to allow the streetcar to make that turn, that protected turn, safe turn off of Broadway, and then of course back onto Robinson. So that's what the third project is all about, making that 5th Street turnback operational. So with approval of this item, we will submit the grant application to ACOG.
These both ACOG, are they approved one of them, or all encompassing, or they can approve 1, 2, or 3?
Yeah, they're actually 3 separate projects that we're submitting for that, so they could approve 1 or none or all 3. Right.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Do we have a motion to approve item D?
Jason, I have a question.
Sure.
I forgot to ask you yesterday during our briefing. I know when I was at the National League of Cities back in the weekend before we went into shelter in place, I remember the American Public Transit Association being a big advocate for increasing funding for the Surface Transportation Block Grant. Have we heard anything about any increases in that funding? Because I mean, it goes to stuff like this, and it was something that I, then went on to advocate for during my visits with Senator Langford's office and Congresswoman Horn's office as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not aware of any significant increases, like as opposed to the FAST Act when it was approved, and the increases that transit saw there. The STBG UZA funds, at least in our region, are primarily for, roads and streets. But I will say, over the last few years, particularly with, ACOG and their proactive approach to continue to, to keep the program, relevant, they've looked at the criteria, and so transit and items such as sidewalks have competed, better for the funds than maybe what they have in the past. So although I'm not aware of a significant increase in dollar amount, I can say that transit and other mobility type projects can now score and compete much better than they did in the past. And so that's been very helpful for us. And I should say too, you know, I mentioned that this will be submitted to ACOG for review. You know, that it goes through a committee review process, and these projects are scored against criteria that have really been approved by ACOG, which of course is all the, you know, participating members of ACOG. So lots of representatives from, you know, different cities and different stakeholders have had input into the criteria.
Thank you for that update.
All right, any other questions then? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? All right, motion passes. Thank you. Item E is a change order number 7 to the Convention Center parking garage. You got any brief comments on that, Jason?
Yeah, let's see. Trying to see if Corey was on for this one, but yep, I got it. So yeah, Mr. Chairman, change order number 7 is for the Convention Center parking garage. It's really doing 2 things. It is extending the completion date. It's not a, you know, significant increase, but rather than being completed in mid-October, we're now looking at a completion date of November 24th. So we're still looking to keep our commitment and our schedule of having substantial completion done in November, with final completion, except for the artwork, done in December. So that's part of the change order. The other part of the change order, and you can see it in the supporting documents, but it's additional expense related to, I believe there's some additional fireproofing we have to do where the future development will connect to the garage. I know there's some additional bollard work that we had to do to put some bollards around some drainage pipes. In fact, if you'll look really on page 1 and 2 of the attachment from TAP Architecture, you'll see the various changes that we're having to make during construction that make up that $85,353 increase. So with approval of this change order, that will take our total of all of our change orders to $347,726 more than the original contract amount, or an increase of 1.5%. Recall, we also have an amendment on the garage of just over $55,000. But overall, our construction costs have been, you know, pretty close to what we had budgeted. So with that, I'm glad to answer any questions or ask Corey to elaborate further.
Yeah, no, looking back on some of our other projects, the change order on this garage has been relatively small compared to some others, if I recall. So any questions? If not, I'd have a motion to approve item E. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Item F is receiving the parking committee's recommendations on naming the garage and the surface lot. The parking committee did meet earlier this week and came up with their recommendations to call the parking garage the Convention Center garage, and the surface lot to the south, Scissortail Surface Lot. These names from the parking committee seem to be most indicative of what the parking garage and the lots are used for. So we'll help people understand when they see those names where they are. So any questions on this item? If not, I'd have a motion to approve the new names. Been moved and seconded. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Last item on our individual considerations is kind of a biggie, but took Jason a little while to try to explain this to me when we had our conference for the meeting. But it's a resolution approving the purchase option and for new buses. And Jason, you might go into a little discussion on this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what we're asking the trust to consider with item 6G is really two things: approving the purchase option pricing, and then also allowing for unit pricing on optional items for buses. So I'll start by talking about the option pricing if I can. And just as a reminder to the trust, we entered into a contract with New Flyer back on January 6th of 2017. And that contract had a base price for buses up to 18 buses. And then after we purchased 18 buses, as is typical with long-term multi-year contracts, there's some type of inflation factor there. And so after we purchase 18 buses, the price of the bus increases. So where we're at is we basically have purchased all of those initial 18 buses. And in this last bus order of 8 buses, 3 of those buses are subjected to that options price increase. So for 6 of the buses, we're getting the base price of $491,623. For 3 of the buses, because they hit that threshold, we're over 18 in total that we've purchased, we're actually going to be paying $533,880 per bus. So you can see a variance of over $40,000 per bus for those 3 buses that we're purchasing that are in excess of the initial 18. So that's what the option pricing is about. It's coming back to the trust and saying, hey, because of the contract terms, we have to pay an additional $40,000 roughly per bus. The second part of the item is asking the trust to authorize purchasing some unit priced items from New Flyer to add to the buses. And those are outlined really in the last paragraph of the memo that you have. But the short of it is some of the things that we're putting on the buses now, we either weren't available when we agreed to the contract back in 2017, or technology has simply changed. And so with the order that is in front of you today, what we're asking is for authorization to spend an additional $9,700 per bus for the quantum wheelchair restraints. And I think all of the trustees have been able to see how those work. They're basically an automated wheelchair securement device. That's a good example of some technology that we're using that we really didn't even contemplate when we did the contract back in 2017. You can also see that we're looking to upgrade the camera systems to current technology, refrigerant for the air conditioning system. So these are just items that, again, really just trying to keep up with mainly changes in technology we want to add to the buses. And then the last, significant unit price item we're wanting to ask the trustees to consider is spending an additional $5,281 per bus for what they call the Smart Ride system. And I'll try to explain that briefly. Basically, all the buses that we order now, our entire fleet, they're what's referred to as a kneeling bus. So they kneel in the front. The front of the bus will actually lower in order to allow for ADA accessibility. It helps the bus line up, better with the curb height, and so that the ramp is compliant. What we're asking for with this smart ride system is to really expand that so that rather than just the front of the bus being able to kneel, the entire bus, can basically lower or raise. And the advantage to that is, one is we would like to try this technology in preparation for our coming BRT route, because as you know, with BRT, level boarding is key. I mean, we want to have the same level boarding at our BRT platforms that we experience now with the streetcar. So we'd like to be able to test this technology out where the entire bus can raise and lower in order to match curb heights. And if successful and works like we think it will, then we can ask for that specification in the bid documents we put together for our BRT rolling stock. The other advantage of this hydraulic lift system is essentially it allows us operational flexibility when the BRT is in service, because if we have this same leveling system, then if for some reason, we're down a BRT bus, we have other buses in our fleet that we could put out on that route. So we're really just trying to be, with this last item, this smart ride system, we're really just trying to be proactive, think about including this enhancement in our fleet, and helping us prepare best for what we might experience with the Bus Rapid Transit when it launches in 2023. So with all of those changes, and you can see it broke down in the estimated cost section, but the total additional amount that we're requesting for the bus purchase is $247,000. 126 of that is attributed to the 3 options priced buses, and then 120,000 of that is for basically the extras or the add-ons that I just described, and that will be applicable to each of the buses. We've already encumbered essentially our grant funds and some GO bond funds for this bus purchase. So this additional 247 would come from our transit capital reserves.
Jason, can I ask a question on the going forward, when we order more buses, would we use this existing contract and pay that purchase option pricing addition, or are we going to go out for bids on a new block of buses?
I think it'll be a combination of both. I would expect our next bus order, just because of timing and the term of the existing contract, to probably be subject to those option prices. But beyond our next bus order, we would need to do a new procurement. And although that options price is it's a pretty substantial increase. I mean, it's about 8%, I believe. I do think it's worth pointing out that we've been ordering buses since 2017, basically, or at no change in price. So it's kind of one of the things we knew going into the contract is, we weren't going to see, sometimes you'll see like a inflation factor applied to each year of the contract. And in this case, it was just applied based on number of buses purchased. So we really haven't experienced, increasing prices for the last several years.
Jason, refresh my memory, when we turn over the old buses, do we receive any value for that, or what exactly happens to all the old buses?
Yeah, we basically auction them off. We receive, generally a very minimal bid amount on those used transit buses. I'm off the top of my head, I'm not aware of really one that maybe we've sold for more than 5,000. I think they usually come in maybe half of that even. you know, in some cases, you know, I believe we may have had some conversations with possibly trying to donate one to public safety for training purposes. So there's really not much value, if anything, left in them, you know, by the time we're done using them.
Okay, thank you.
And
Any other questions by any of the trustees? Then I'd have a motion to approve item G. Been a motion moved and seconded. All in favor? Motion carries. All right, our next item is ratification of claims and payroll for the period September 1st through September 29th. Looks like we spent a little money during that period of time, but are there any questions by any of the trustees? Then I'd have a motion to ratify our claims and payroll. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries. Our next is to receive COTPA schedule of revenues and expenditures and budget to actual for the month ending August 31st. And I think Jason does have a couple of comments on that.
yes, sir. I'll keep my comments brief. Glad to answer questions. I know we have 3 presentations coming up following this, so I'll be sensitive to time. But did want to start with our transit operations and really dwell primarily on the expenditures. I mean, you can see the total revenues were pretty well on track with what we had budgeted. Granted, that does include some additional state funding that we didn't allocate to the first part of the fiscal year, but I did want to concentrate my comments on the expenditures because you'll see that nearly each of the expenditure categories is shown there to be over budget through 2 months of the fiscal year. And really my best explanation for that is we as staff probably need to go back and look at how we have our budget or our, you know, the expected amounts we're going to spend each month, how we have that allocated through each of the 12 months. And the reason I say that is because, for example, in August, we had 3 payrolls, I believe, on the COTPA side of our business. So I'm not certain at this point. Keep in mind, we just received the report, the completed report earlier this week. We got a review last week. But, you know, do we have, you know, did we account for that in the budget, that we'd have 3 payrolls instead of 2? So we need to look at that. Also, you know, with the supplies and the services, typically what we will see is spending more for supplies and services in the first couple months than we do towards the end of the year, because we're usually restocking on a lot of items that we did not order or we held off ordering at the end of the previous fiscal year. So I really think we probably need to go back and take a look at how we have those projected expenditures allocated. If you look at the overall budget, $30.6 million, and you just did and this is just, you know, very, very high level, just rough math, but just to kind of put it in perspective, you know, that's about $2.5 million a month if we spend our entire budget. And if you look over at our total expenditures to date, the actuals column, you can see we've spent, you know, just around $5 million over 2 months. So again, that's an indicator to me that, you know, we probably just need to look at how we have those expected expenditures programmed through the 12 months. And we've had some discussions with accounting already about that. So I guess my message at this point in time is I don't see any alarm for the overall budget, but we will go back and look to see how we have those individual lines budgeted and make any adjustments that are needed. If no questions on the transit financials, then we just move over to the next page in your budget to actual. Just very quickly, this is our Norman operations. Again, if you look at the operating income line, you'll see that we've collected 125,000 more in revenue than what we have had in expenses. And again, that is just staff and our partners in Norman working together to keep our commitment to, basically make sure that we were able to have Norman pre-fund some of those expenses that we would incur. So we weren't always billing in arrears. And then on the next page, page 4, this is our parking operations. We'd probably like to point out to you here that on the revenue side of things, you can see our monthly contracted revenue is coming in under budget. We're about 90% of what we had expected through 2 months of the fiscal year. So that's creating a negative variance of about $46,000 from what we had hoped to collect through 2 months of the fiscal year. If you follow down to the expenses, you'll see total expenses are running under budget, and we would anticipate that to continue. We're really working hard on the parking side of operations to not only manage the budget but try to come in under, just because of the revenue uncertainty that we have this year. I will skip any comments for the river cruises and Spokies and finish up with streetcar operations, page 7 of your budget to actual, and really direct your attention to 2 places. One, the operating income line. You'll see that if you just take total revenues received, which primarily our revenue is general fund subsidy, you subtract out our total expenditures, we're showing to have a surplus or an operating income of $697,000. And I can tell you that, it's just due to the timing of receiving the Herzog invoices, that's dramatically overstated. If you look at the streetcar operations line, in the expenditure section, we budget, almost $3.7 million for those streetcar operations. And we actually haven't paid out any to Herzog through 2 months of the fiscal year. We have received and now processed 2 invoices. The combined total of those invoices is in excess of $600,000. So what you'll see in your September financial will be a much more accurate representation, I guess, if you will, of what our revenue versus expenses amount truly is. So all that to say that, really, even though we're showing $697,000 of surplus, there's over $600,000 of expenses that are not reflected on this report.
How can they go 2 months and have us not pay them? I don't know.
Yeah, well, now 1 month. Now, first of all, one month is not uncommon. The Herzog invoices, very similar to the Republic invoices. They're processed basically a month behind. So in this case, for the services that Herzog provides in July, we would receive that invoice sometime in August, and we review it thoroughly and then process it for payment. So in this case, if we had processed that invoice, I don't want to say on time, because usually the reason we don't process them immediately is because we have questions. We have reconciliation items that staff and Herzog or staff and Republic will go back and forth on till we're totally comfortable about paying the invoice. So in this case, really there's just one invoice that we would have expected to pay that we haven't. The reason I mentioned 2 is because we're through 2 months of the fiscal year. So we've actually, incurred 2 months worth of Herzog invoices or expenses. But really, if you're looking at just pure budget to actuals and thinking about the timing of when we would pay, we wouldn't pay for services received in July until August anyway. But to answer your question, you know, I mean, Herzog and Republic both are great partners. They understand the process and the, I mean, I'll really say the thorough review, I believe that we as staff do. And I mean, there is very seldom, if ever, an invoice that we receive initially that we don't have some type of questions or some type of follow-up on. So they work with us until we're completely satisfied before we pay the bill for, or process the bill for payment.
Any other questions on the financials? Then I have a motion to receive our schedule of revenues and expenditures. We have a motion and second. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. We have 3 program reports this morning. Community engagement and customer relations update, and marketing and technology program update, and then a parking program update. So I guess item A, the community engagement's going first.
Yes, sir. We have Kristen Torkelson with us this morning that will present what she's been up to with community engagement. We're bringing our other studio online as we speak, so give us just a moment.
Sure. Studio, aren't you fancy?
Is that right? For this one?
Slideshow. The one is a slideshow. So I think
We're getting there.
click share.
Sorry about that. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Great. We did it. Okay. Good morning and happy Friday. I'm going to give you all just a quick update on customer service and community outreach. So typically on October, we have an Embark Health Fair, and this takes place in the atrium in the transit center, in the largest place of the transit center. And we have partnered with different agencies that come, and they usually have freebies that they give out. We typically do flu shots with the City County Health Department. So obviously in a pandemic, that's not going to happen the same way. But I am working with the City County Health Department again to see if we could do some flu shots, and if that has to be, you know, maybe 2 days long instead, because we have limited capacity in the transit center. We've been talking about that, but at the same time, the partner agencies listed on the screen here, they are going to be providing some items to give away. So we'll put some bags together. It'll be some first come, first serve thing or situation. So like Delta Dental is going to be doing toothbrushes, and then we have somebody else who's going to be giving out like pill containers. We have some handouts in general. So we're making do with what we can during a pandemic. Oh, and we still have plenty of masks. So we'll also be giving away masks during this time as well. Okay, and then as you all know, there's a beautiful new building on Broadway, and Heartland is going to be occupying that. They are also going to be moving into the Meineke building over in Bricktown. And keep in mind that when they did relocate to Broadway, that they were, they specifically chose that location because it was on the streetcar route. And also, you can see on the map on the bottom, the Meineke building is also on the streetcar route. So we have our complimentary pass policy that was passed through the board. So we are going to give them complimentary monthly passes to their employees. So this is what it looks like. It's just like a welcome letter. So basically all the employees will get a code, you know, for them to activate their monthly pass. So we'll be keeping track of those numbers. And then we also partnered with Scissortail Park. They have started a membership program. I believe that started at the end of August. And so if you go to their website, you know, they have discounts on like the skate rentals. You can get a free paddle boat rental. there's a discount for their cafe. And so then they were also working with other agencies and just businesses around the park. So like Social Capital was one that participated. And they reached out to us because there's the stop right there, stop number 5. And so we've been working with them, and we created codes for token transit to where a member can receive half off a day pass for the streetcar. So that was exciting. And that is all I have at the moment. Do y'all have any questions for me?
All right. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Item B is our marketing and technology program update.
We're building a little suspense because it is going to be worth it.
Wow, that's going to be hard to live up to now.
You have no problem handling that, Michael.
Go ahead and look at it, Lisa.
Go ahead and do it. From beginning, right? Right. All right, thank you for your patience. Navigate through all of this. Well, it's really good to see all of you again, and I'm really excited to tell you about some of the work that we've been working on since we last talked to you in March. I can't believe it's been that long, but it's something we are pretty passionate about, and let's just continue to tell our story even in difficult times that we've all been kind of working through. So one of the first things that we're really pleased to see hit the street, and that's our parking app. And with the parking app, you've heard about that. I'm not sharing. Okay. Right there. Right here. The slideshow. Your screen right there is so big. Well, my apologies. Of course, it takes the technology manager to have technology issues, right? Thank you very much for your patience. Well, again, the parking app technology, what's really exciting about this too is that this is just the ground level for continuing to modernize our parking system. Corey's done a great job of bringing this to us. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about how passionate he has been about this, and it has nothing to do with the fact that it's his birthday today. So we are very pleased again with bringing this to our city, but also it's going to allow us to, imagine paying for your parking and reserving your spot, and you're heading to the next Philharmonic or ballet, and you're ready to go. I picked the wrong one. Good night. All right. Well, we're going to keep going. That's the one it's selected. Are you seeing a screen yet?
Yeah, we're seeing the presenter view. So it's okay. You just scoot your notes over if you want, whatever.
Presenter view still?
Yeah. Yes.
Stop sharing.
There we go.
This all makes me
Very humbling moment here.
feel so much better about all my technology troubles.
Yeah.
I feel so much better now.
Well, that's what I'm here to do, is make you all feel a lot better. I hope I did that. So, we've got that coming. One of the things too that we have coming that that you've seen us working on, and we want to see more and more people use, and that's regarding the streetcar and being able to see it in real time. So we developed this nice little clip that kind of starts to promote that and tell our public about what's available. I'm going to make sure. Did we add audio when we did that?
So that movie you wanted to see starts really soon.
Hearing it? Obviously, this is going to be a very helpful tool for our passengers and our potential visitors that are going to be returning to the downtown area. And in the very near future, you'll also be seeing that live real-time map on the pylons at each of the stops. So you'll be able to see where the streetcar is and when to expect it next. And so we're just trying to, again, elevate the customer experience and continue to bring a reliable transit option to our downtown area. So one of the other service features that we have been working to promote is continuing our bus service, and our night service continues to be one of those service areas that have continued growth, as well as interest in providing additional service if we were to ever be able to do that. And the night service, remember, when we surveyed after we first started providing this service, it's a lifeline for people to have in regards to employment opportunities, for healthcare, and for just reconnecting with their community. And so this is just one of those kind of a vignette explaining and showing how that is happening. And finally, we know we couldn't do any of this without our employees. One of the things that is readily apparent is that we have heroes that we work with every day who are helping our community continue just to get their basic necessities met every day. And that's just getting groceries, access to food, and reliable healthcare services. And, we just cannot do this without the help of our operators, those who are keeping our vehicles clean and sanitary. And so we just wanted to take a moment to recognize them, but also to recognize those who are being responsible, wearing masks, or also who are, staying home and not taking trips that are unessential. And this was one opportunity for us to do that. And we've called it the Saved You a Seat.
When life is at a standstill, we notice movement. They say we'll be back, but some of us have been here all along.
Oklahoma City is resilient. There's strength in our workers. There's courage, dedication, and drive.
To all the drivers, doers, helpers, riders, and all of those moving us forward, thank you. For those staying home, we saved you a seat.
So there's been a lot of other things that we've been working on as well. That includes the community meetings throughout June and July to announce the service changes, as well as continuing to work internally to build tools for our customer and relations team, like you saw with Heartland and those outreaches, as well as providing opportunities for us to communicate with you and our potential new employees. With that, I'd like to answer any questions you might have about some of the activities we've been working on and some of the things that we have coming ahead. I'd be glad to talk to. Well, thank you so very much for your patience with me today. I hope I made you feel better and that you can end the week on a high, knowing that you can operate technology a lot better than I can.
Those are great pieces that you've done, so thank you.
Thank you all very much.
We can operate technology as well as you can.
All right, our final program report is a parking system report. I guess Corey's gonna
Corey's eating birthday cake.
My video is not on. How do I turn my video on?
Over top right screen, top right screen.
For the record, Corey cheated. My presentations, as they're all about concrete, aren't nearly as fancy as the prior two. But as Jason stated earlier, we did suffer a delay of 20-some days with change order 7, but things are going well, and we will be open for our new business, surrounding businesses. Few slides today that are not moving. Oh, we've recently started the landscaping. Here's some hardscape on E.K. Gaylord. Our public parking signs have been installed. Hardscape on 4th Avenue. And then another picture of 4th Avenue hardscape. Old Broadway hardscape with our fancy public parking signs. Our grand pedestrian entry and exit at the southwest corner of the garage. And the tile installation has begun for our elevator lobbies. And then in the back, you can see the access to the skywalk to gain access to the convention center. That's it for my pictures. That I will tell you that yesterday we got our first of 4 shipments of the plastic tiles that will be used for our art. So you'll start seeing some scaffolding put up, and our art tile will begin, installation will begin in the coming weeks. With that, is there any questions about concrete?
Well, I don't know, how long will the tile work take to get all our artwork up?
We have, we currently believe it'll be 12 weeks of installation, or I'm sorry, I misspoke. We've scheduled 10 weeks of work for the installation, but nobody has ever installed almost 90,000 pieces of tile on a garage before or anything like that. So that's what we've scheduled. We're in a great big unknown, sir.
All right.
I think coming into the winter months, weather's always kind of a factor too, unfortunately, but.
Well, we're anxious to see it. I think it'll certainly make the garage once it's completed. Has construction started on the apartments?
No, it has not. Publicly, they've stated, or in the newspaper, they're looking at starting spring of 21.
Oh, okay. All right. Any questions of Corey? Thank you. I would have a motion to receive our program reports. That's motion second. All in favor? Motion passes. I would also just ask the trustees, they can review the streetcar program report and the transit system report. And if they have any questions on that, to get a hold of Jason and just review any questions they might have. So, all right, any items from the trustees?
Mr. Chairman?
Jason?
Yep. If no other comments, two quick comments. One of the items on our consent docket was our agreement with Rose State College. That's an annual agreement where they help fund part of Route 15 that serves Oklahoma City and Midwest City. So I just wanted to publicly thank them for their continued partnership. And then I also wanted to mention that last week we were involved in our annual state safety oversight audit. So myself, our chief safety officer, Eugene Fritz, streetcar operations manager, Jesse Rush, and our rail safety specialist, and all things audit related, Molly Rainey, were involved in that, along with a lot of support from Herzog. And I just wanted to report out to the trustees that the interviews, those 2 days of really just kind of discussing the different things we're doing in areas of safety, we think went really well. We appreciate ODOT's partnership. And then of course, we'll follow up with those audit results when the state finishes their audit and gives us a final report. But I just wanted to let you know that we have done that annual audit, and I feel like, and I think staff would concur, that we were off to a really good start. It was a good 2 days last week.
All right. No other questions? I would ask all the trustees to take care, stay healthy, and someday we can get back to in-person meetings, I hope, so that we don't have to all learn this technology like some of them are having to. So if nothing else, I would say this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending.